Welcome back to AI Health Insight, and today on the Trio Protocol. Again, if you do not know what the Trio Protocol is, please click the link, get to the website, and look for the healing framework, which is found somewhere on the website. I cannot tell you where. Found somewhere. Based on which device you use, it's easier to access. Now, today we are looking at the enemy, fungus, and how the Trio Protocol helps you to think about fungus. With the Tree protocol, you learn that in the day you are focused on the kidney with hydration, and in the evening you are focused on the liver with amino acids, fatty acids. So basically, in the day, plant-based foods would help the input of glucose that comes with vitamin C. So when you eat a proper plant-based food like a fruit, you are presenting the natural needed substances together. So you have fruit that comes with vitamin C and the glucose. If you eat a non-processed, if you eat other foods like processed foods like a cooked banana, you do not have vitamin C. So you become conscious that you need to have some vitamin C with these things, and you may drink some lime juice, some lemon juice, some fruits or whatever to bring in the vitamin C or find vitamin C. You cannot beat mother nature with evidence, so that is how life goes, and you keep the evidence from mother nature flowing. So if you are eating bread, you say to yourself, hey, bread is a glucose substance, highly glucose, that is going to be going to the bloodstream, so let us just get our vitamin C and whatever else you could get to support the mitochondria's health. That is for the day. You know why it's for the day? Because the sun is all the mitochondria is going to be utilizing glucose to make ATP. You are supposed to be active when the mitochondria is active. You are supposed to be active during the day, meaning that the mitochondria in the muscles would suck up the glucose, and so you would also keep your insulin levels under control, because you do not need insulin for the muscles when they are sucking up glucose. You need them when muscles are at rest or the body is at rest. You would need those insulin molecules to help with sticking glucose into the organs, and that is not a good thing. So the Trio protocol explains that in the day, having plant substances largely is about supporting your glucose load, and in the evening you focus, you switch your mind to supporting the ribosomes and the protein creators and the protein users. So you think about amino acids, fatty acids, the vitamins A, D, and K getting into your body, which is gonna come from, of course, eggs and beef, eggs and fish, eggs and poultry, eggs and whatever else. But if you do not eat those things, you would have to study those things and say to yourself, where do I get vitamin A, D, E, K, as if I would have gotten it from piece of maybe eggs and beef. What do I get from a liver, like the copper, the vitamin A, so forth and so on. And you may want to supplement with a little bit of liver. You may want to study the animal and say, if I was eating the whole animal, what am I getting there from the animal that I need to supplement? The things like collagen, we would supplement with that because we would have gotten that from the animal. Fermented milk, real cow milk, fermented, we call it yogurt or kefir, whatever name, or just fermented milk. We try to get that into the body in the evening towards the night, supplying amino acids, fatty acids, and a variety of other nutritional substances that are practically impossible to find if you don't know the science and with supplement to buy, which is a challenge in 2025. So the Trio protocol says in the day, focus on your mitochondria and the kidney hydration. In the evening, focus on your liver and the nutrients for the ribosomes. And move through that cycle, heal yourself. Now, in this whole walk of life, fungus will come up when we are more on the side of eating plants and being in a state of being glucose load, glucose addicted. We are basically attracting fungus, ignore bacteria, because the problem is the bacteria are already in our system doing their job, and the three systems we have is the stomach, which should be acidic, and then we have our small intestine, the 20 feet of small intestine, which should be neutral for absorption, and then you have the fermentation chamber with all the bacteria that should be converting that which you cannot digest into stuff like fatty acids, short chain fatty acids, butyrate, propionate, acetate, and of course excrement. No, the whole problem with bacteria is moving from lower to upper is because we are doing ourselves the injustice of loading the small intestine with so much particles of glucose and fructose, and so the bacteria do have their own sense of smell, and they smell the greatness above, so they come up, and then we say we have SIBO, 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 whatever. But that is not so much an issue as compared to when we have so much of glucose in this small intestine, in the large intestine, but ultimately so much of glucose in the bloodstream that we have brought in fungus into the system of ourselves. At one point in my life, I used to say fungus would have been in the gastrointestinal system only. Yes, we learn about H. pylori being in the stomach, and of course, we know the implications there with the stomach acidity going low. But we tend to speak about the digestive tract as where these things stay, and they leak toxic substance that gets into the bloodstream. We don't say that they get into the bloodstream and then they settle themselves in our joints, our knees, they settle themselves on our pancreas or liver. We don't see that. We pretend like these things don't exist. Folks, wake up and smell the unrealistic realities of life. They exist and they are doing us injustice largely because we are on a high glucose based diet when glucose is the main substance that is digested from many multiple plants. Most of our food based plants. Do not confuse this here with our medical plants, which are called herbs. Medical things, herbs are not foods, they are medicine. But our food based plants, whether the food is in the natural state, including the fruits, they are highly glucose or fructose glucose loaded, or whether the fruit is processed, make it even worse, dry fruits, and then we would get our fruits in a box, which is called fruits of the food loops cereals. So we have gone into this practice of saying we consume plants 24/7, meaning we consume sources of glucose, ultimately sources of glucose. You could argue when you consume the fruit, you are not consuming glucose only, you are getting fructose, but then at the end of the day, the fructose gets metabolized by the liver cells, converted into glucose if that ever reaches to the state of wanting more glucose in the bloodstream. Most of us would never reach that state because we are always supplying glucose. At the end of the day, we are now in a state, a position where we have attracted, well, yes, parasites, bacteria, but fungus is the criminal. Fungus is the criminal, of course. Bacteria is quite a challenge, but fungus is the criminal because when you compare bacteria issues, you have to say biofilm bacteria, you have to say fungus biofilm fungus, but bacteria may just stay biofilm. Many bacteria break the biofilm, and the protocol is described on the website here with using things like NAC, which is good to break biofilm, whether it's for bacteria or fungus or maybe other parasites that we have not identified. NAC, N-acetyl system, seems to be good at breaking out the biofilm to allow our toxic substance, whether it's oral toxics or pharmaceutical grade toxic substance, to hit the organisms and wipe them out. Now we sit and think that we could kill those bacteria and fungus with one shot and one dose, but then we learn that fungus is the one to study because at the end of the day, the fungus is actually not just with a biofilm, but they are growing roots into our system, and that is what causes us to sometimes mistake a tumor for a cancer. A cancerous tumor versus a fungal growth, because they grow this actual root, which the hyphal form or the mutated form or the very intertwined form, whatever you want to call it, starts taking over the body. Literally, they take over the body. Bacteria, on the other hand, causes all kind of issues, and then you could treat with bacteria, break the biofilm and kill bacteria. But with fungus, break the biofilm, kill a first layer of fungus, Then you have to break biofilm, kill fungus, and then you reach hyphal form where you need a really stronger and stronger, or longer and longer and longer. Not impossible, folks, for us to deal with fungus, but we have to be very strict with our diet. What do we have to be strict with when it comes to our diet? We have to be strict with our diet largely to stay away from glucose, stay away from drugs, because it's good for nobody. So stay away from drugs. That's the first line. What is the drug? Well, it's a drug that the toxic substances that the fungus would release. They would release this toxic substance when you are staying away from drugs. You would get a craving because fungus has a little computer that sends binary code up to the big computer called your brain, and that binary code could make you feel like you need to eat a piece of bread, creeks, um, nuts. Um, you make all kind of excuse and you say this is good for you. That is a binary code sent by the fungus to your brain to say we need our glucose because we need to make new extracellular matrix, new biofilm, we need to multiply. And that is where we start saying to ourselves, fungus is great and they know how to trick us. However, when you go on to an antifungal diet, you start realizing it's a meat-based diet. You start realizing it's a meat-based diet because what you need largely is sulfur compounds found in eggs, N-acetylcysteine, sulfurous, MSM, sulfur, or if you use herbal compounds like Petiveria allicea and garlic, you notice it's a sulfur compound. Allicin and Petiveria allicea has a high sulfuric compound, in fact two sulfuric compound, which makes it very effective against both cancers and fungus. And therefore you start thinking, oh, Petiveria allicea, which is called the guinea head, very well known, and it's starting to become in the research science papers. You could look it up, Petiveria allicea and cancer. But it is the sulfur compounds that are very effective against our friends the fungus. So we have to start thinking the sulforaphane found in cabbage, broccoli, sulfur compounds. So we have to start thinking that we need the sulfur compounds which are naturally available in our cysteine products, which is an amino acid, and that is what helps us. So an antifungal diet would be a diet that is based in eggs and beef and eggs, chicken, fish, and those kind of things, which has very little what? Glucose. Now, you definitely need to get hydration, so you start studying the fruits. But you have to look at the fruits like lemon and lime, which is low in fructose. We have low in glucose and fructose. We have lemons, limes. We have something called star gooseberry. It's like the gooseberry of India. We have other sour fruits. They are high in vitamin C, they are low in the glucose and fructose, and that is based on when you use them. If you let them ripe, then they become very high in fructose, so you have to be careful. We even have coconut water. If you want it as an electrolyte, you know you have to pick it before it starts converting itself into the glucose, which is the sweet coconut water. The electrolyte is when we say it's a full young coconut. It doesn't have the thing we call the meat or the flesh yet. It's an electrolyte. You could mix that with a little salt to make it more electrolytable. Now, so salt and lemon water juice, you make electrolytes in the daytime, morning to the afternoon time. We're speaking about getting your kidneys well hydrated, because your protocol would be dealing with washing out the waste product when you kill a few fungus, if you get to hit them and kill them. But you may not even kill fungus, you may just be breaking up the biofilm, which is also toxic to the body, and that would be coming out during the day. That would be coming out as urination principles or particles in the urine. And that is where we need to understand dehydration sometimes is not about just getting water in the body, but it's to getting you to urinate, to move the lymphatic system, and to get things out of the kidneys. So the movement is important indeed to move the lymphatic system. The hydration has to be complemented. I would say coconut water makes me urinate a lot, but you do not have coconut water all the time. I would even use something like watermelon. If I need to hydrate, I would blend the watermelon with the skin, the rind, and the watermelon to get the L-citrulline, which is very important for the kidneys, and blend it up, squeeze it up in a nut bag, and get my watermelon juice and mix it with insufficient quantities of water to thin it out so that it becomes weak, and then throw in some lemon juice or some lime juice to make it even better. So it wouldn't taste nice, yes, but you still get the particles of the potassium, the electrolyte minerals, whatever comes from it. Soursop is another good one. So you need electrolytes for the kidneys during the day. We look at probiotics. Homemade probiotics seems to be very important. These days we are seeing the ways to manufacture our own probiotics by buying probiotics and mixing it with milk, fermenting it in small fermentation chambers. We have beautiful videos online showing that. People like Dr. Davis Williams with the El Rotorai yogurt. You should look into this. And others are just doing multiple things. For breakfast, you may say, well, you don't want to eat eggs alone. Well, eat eggs and beef, but you don't want to eat eggs and beef because somebody tell you beef would kill you. Okay, fine, but you also have to say, well, maybe your amino acids from beef and eggs is too much based on your eating pattern, but we'll look at that in a little later. But if you're going to eat an egg, you might want to eat it with some sulfur based compounds, some garlic, some um, cabbage, or even fermented cabbage. Carrots is antifungal, and we have broccoli. So these things could be mixed with your egg, and you make a kind of, kind of low glucose, even peppers, low glucose things for your egg meal. But you don't put bread. And you might say, oh, we have quinoa flour and we have this flour and that flour. People, stay away from drugs when you are fighting the battle. If you don't know what is drugs, go and look up where glucose comes from and look at the process. Now, evening to the night is the most important because now, of course, I'll look at the protocol in a while to show you, but this is just the meal, the diet part. We'll look at the protocol otherwise. So, in the evening, based on the Shuri protocol, we are eating meat based. We are eating to make sure that our ribosomes get the amino acids, the fatty acids, the vitamin A, D, and K, and some magnesium and other minerals that it needs. So, we want to make sure that these things get into the body in the evening for when you are resting in the night. When you are resting means you are going to go into the mode of healing, which means the ribosomes will be taking instructions from the nucleus and they will be making your healing compounds known as human protein. This is the Cheery protocol. Of course, the liver is one key element that works at night more than we understand. In the day, the kidney is working at a higher intensity. As you know, your last urination, between 5 to 7, 8, 9, you have your last urination, then you go to sleep. You don't urinate in your sleep except I don't want to say it, but there are some people who might wet the bed, but that should not be normal. That is not normal. You should be sleeping for your sleep time, your 8 to 10 hours of sleep without urinating, meaning the kidneys is not that it's not working, but it would be manufacturing, cleansing the blood in the day when the blood is passing through the kidneys and slowly doing a lot less in the night. So you could start thinking the liver is doing the work in the night, dumping into the gallbladder, the waste, but in the day the kidney is doing most of the cleansing work of the blood and dumping it into the kidney bladder, and you urinate. Notice that in the day when you want to urinate, you have to urinate. You don't have to do anything. In the night, the gallbladder cannot do anything on its own. It is waiting for you to become conscious and eat something of fat to flush it out in the morning. So the liver is doing the detoxification work in the night, and so you can't sit and say, well, my liver will detoxify me because of magic. No, it's saying I need methionine, I need glutathione, I need the amino acids, and I can make what I have to make to do the cleansing work for you. Therefore, you will think back and say, where do I get all these amino acids from? Well, of course, fruits, eggs, beef, eggs, fish, eggs, other meats. So this is how we start thinking about the Trio protocol. It is a full protocol for human health. So if you cannot just eat eggs and beef for the whole time, okay, but you have to focus on getting these things in the evening as part of your thinking. You may want to support, or you have to support, your liver with the curcumin and the milk thistle, small amounts, quantities, because they are medicine hubs. They are medical hubs. They do support, so you could support yourself. Of course, we say hydration. So in this protocol, I give you some little things to do, like between 9 to 12 you want to make sure you're hydrated. That's 9 to 12 in the day, so that you could have enough water to do things. Now I also included some little tips here. Things like xylitol has been shown to inhibit candida biofilm formation. So xylitol could be something if you think you really have a sweet tooth and you think the guys are sending up this toxic substance to your brain, making you think you want something sweet. Grab onto some xylitol, have that there, or something called allulose, which is dipictose, and get those things on hand. So when the signal goes up, you could use those to trick them, because what is happening, these sugars apparently are not metabolized, or not, they cannot be used by the fungus, which is a good news, because we could use them to beat out fungus from behind the biofilm and kill them with our poisons, which is antifungals, whether it's from the pharmaceutical grade or from the herbal grade. Do not ever sit and think that the herbal is better than pharmaceutical and this pharmaceutical is better than herbal. Always think that the pharmaceutical is more concentrated and it will do more damage, both to the good cells and the bad cells. The herbals, longer term, do less damage, but they both need to touch the fungus for the damage to happen, and in this case the fungus is behind its glass wall. Now antifungal snacks would be things like coconut fudge sweetened with allulose. This is just my own personal touch to it. Coconut have, or you have caprylic acid, right? Now you could make a coconut fudge, which is something we make. They call it chip coconut. You take the coconut, you grate it, and then you put it in a pot with a little sugar. In this case, I would not say put sugar, because when you said sugar, it was cane sugar. Now I would say put it with some allulose. I don't know if you heat allulose, if you would be literally converting the allulose into some other thing, which is something I have to study. But you could throw a little allulose or the coconut sugar and use that as bait to beat out the fungus, and let the caprylic acid, and I think it has lauric acid in coconut too, let those things do their job, and then you throw in some coconut oil. What we call coconut oil is the literal juice from the coconut, the oil from the coconut. I think it's also a mix you could try. You blend the coconut, do not add water. You blend the coconut, you squeeze it in your nut bag, and you're getting milk from a fresh coconut. You throw in some allulose and you drink that very early in the morning. The fungus comes out to get the sugar. They think it's sugar, that's the allulose. They cannot metabolize the sugar, and they get wet by the coconut, whatever, the coconut, lauric acid, caprylic acid, and you get some benefits from that also. These are all suggestions anyway, but you could find this thing about caprylic acid has been shown to disrupt fungal cell membrane on this Journal of Medical Food link right there. I don't know if the link works. Now, in the day, you have to focus on your kidney and your lymphatic system. You have to support, so gentle walking, bouncing, rebounding for the lymphatic system. There is a Dr. Perry who has the big six for people who really don't walk and things like that. You want to look into this. Why you want the lymphatic system to move during the day? Well, it's for two reasons. The lymphatic system is what takes up our vitamin A, D, E, K, and our cholesterol. That is where they pass to get into our bloodstream, go up to that left side, the subclavian vein, and drain into the blood, so that the liver could then get these nutrients to process in the late future. They don't pass through the digestive system as amino acids and glucose. They have a different pathway, which is the lymphatic system. So moving, because the lymphatic system cannot move on its own, so walking, tightening the muscles gets your lymphatic system to move these nutrients slowly and slowly in. That explains why, because having high dose of these fat soluble vitamins are not so well recommended, but when they get through the lymphatic system, it's not like they're rushing through with this movement of what we call the blood. They are taking the time to get where they have to go. However, the lymphatic system also is where apparently our metabolic waste and stuff has to get to drain again into from the cells. They drain into the subclavian vein, goes down back to the kidney, where the kidney pulls out metabolic waste, because these are waste you could pass through your urine. And that is where we need to understand, when we kill fungus, we definitely need to move things out of the locations into this lymphatic system and move them into the kidneys, and the kidneys need to be moving them out through your urination. So without this kind of information, we might be killing fungus and not moving them out because we lack hydration and we lack movement, which would move the lymphatic system. Okay, so that was very important. The amino acid which I spoke about on the sulfur-based diet is largely what we have to look at to help support a long term. And when we say long term, maybe 6 to 9 months would be medium term, and a diet on for someone who has been suffering with fungal issues for the last 20 years, because vegetarian diet is largely 33 years, and you start understanding a lot of these symptoms later in life. Then you start realizing it's fungal infections. In fact, you had so much fungal infections that you never recognized that you had fungal infections until you realize it's fungal infections. Awareness is quite important, folks. Always treating yourself with apple cider vinegar between your toes, those kind of fungal infection between your toes. You dip in your foot in apple cider vinegar to treat with the externalities and not realizing the thrust, the jock itch, the under the arm issues. You don't see them, the skin issues, you don't see them as internal fungal infections until you reach the real breaking point. Now, when you speak about the fungal diet and you speak about this protocol, you also go to the point where you say we need key supplements to support, and there are many. I just have these listed here because they are popular. Oregano oil, coconut oil, berberine, grapefruit seed extract. Seems to be very good for as antifungal supplement. No, this is not the protocol. These are antifungal supplements. Soil-based probiotic is also highly recommended. Now you have to learn what is soil-based probiotic. It's totally different to those we get into our yogurts like the lactobacillus and so forth. You have to learn about these. All right. Things to avoid, of course, would be plant-based foods, high sugar foods, plant-based foods. Avoid dairy except you making home-based yogurts. I do make the home-based yogurts. With the yogurts, the bacteria eat the sugar. So, and right now my protocol would be not to use inulin, which is a plant-based product, but I'm trying to see if I could use now this thing called collagen powder with the milk and with the lactobacillus reuteri to see if I could ferment this and make a yogurt. Just an experiment. But you have to avoid plant-based food, and there are some herbs like cabbage that you want to include, broccoli, because of the sulfur compounds. So here is a summary of that first part, and the protocol for fungal treatment is what is important now. So there are 5 focus areas. So you fix your diet, you get yourself to understand meats and eggs and meat, and then you come to the saying, I'm going to deal with this for the next 2-3 months. What should I do? First of all, grab some NAC. Get a lots of NAC, and you would cycle in your NAC in and out, maybe 2 weeks, 1 week out. Cycle in your NAC. Start with the smallest amount, like 300. So you could buy this bottle of 600 and then open the capsule and take half in the morning on the empty stomach, and then take half in the midday and then half in the evening. So you could use a 600 twice, and by the end of the day you would use 1200 on an empty stomach. It helps to break down the biofilm of the stuff called the biofilm on those both bacteria and fungus make biofilm. It helps break down the biofilm. Now you need a digestive enzyme, not any digestive enzyme. You need an anti-biofilm digestive enzyme. This one here has all these things in it, so you could click the link here to see what it is like. A little bit expensive. You take this and the NAC together 30 minutes before you eat, giving the body some time to absorb and giving the whatever in them to work on breaking down and digesting out these parts of the biofilm. So this whole thing here is biofilm breaker. I've also found that boron could be a trace mineral that could help break down biofilm. so you might want to get boron to throw in. I found also Lugos iodine might be able to help also in breaking down biofilm, and there are other things that could destroy biofilm, including xylitol and bromelain, which is an enzyme. So this is an enzyme which is related to digestive enzyme up here, and this could EDTA could chelate minerals or metals, which could then, well, it's like it's gonna pull metals from the biofilm and break down the biofilm. So it's like it's putting out that two little pieces of blocks. So breaking down biofilm is your goal. That's the first goal. And when you break down biofilm, then you apply antifungal to kill the fungus. So imagine a fungus is an easy thing to kill, but it's hiding behind this beautiful glass wall, and you have to break the glass wall. And as soon as you wet the fungus and you get them wet with this antifungal, you kill them. And then as soon as you kill them, there's another glass wall under them. So they have built this onion layers, you see, with glass walls, glass walls, glass walls, which we call the biofilm. And we have to break one glass wall to get to the next glass wall, get to the next glass wall. And that's why we need to understand breakdown with the biofilm and what we could use to do that. There are many other things, but these are some that are standing out to me. So break down the biofilm, please. Then bind the toxin released by the liver and the gallbladder. So when you do this, let's say in the night, you kill some fungus, you break down biofilm, you sleep in. Where does the toxic substances from the biofilm and those dying dead fungus go? They go into the blood, they cut up their liver, say, hey, here comes some wicked guys, let's pull them out, put them into the gallbladder. So he pulls it out and he puts it in the bile and holds it in the gallbladder, hoping that you will wake up as a conscious being and say, hey, my gallbladder last night would have been full with this nonsense, so let me flush it out. That is what it's waiting on. So you got up in the morning and you said, let me flush out the gallbladder, which means you are conscious enough to say, let me have something like fats and oil. So you get up and you would have something like eggs with a little bit of butter. Or you could say to yourself, let me make a conscious effort to flush out this thing. A little olive oil with a little salt, a little lemon juice. You start out up and drink it. The oil in the lemon juice, of course, on an empty stomach would cause your stomach to say, hey, we are empty, but this guy make us acidic, let's dump. It would dump, but the oil would cause the gallbladder to say, hey, CCK would be signaling the gallbladder to come down. That's a hormone because of the fats in the olive oil, the oleic acid, and that would cause gallbladder to flush. So gallbladder gets a flush out, and everything rushes down into the small intestine quickly, and then you would see you have this kind of movement. But what you want to do when you do that, you also want to have something to bind, like activity charcoal or a chelating agent like zeolite clay or something like that to help bind and pull it out. And you give yourself a little while to drink more water, you start hydrating to move things down, also to push things down a little bit faster. In some cases, some people say, you see me, I want to push things out so fast because I may not have a chelating agent to bind or a binding agent to bind. So they may put a little bit of magnesium sulfate, which is called Epsom salt, in the mixture of olive oil in the morning, and they do what is called a quick little purge out. So the olive oil, yes, comes on lemon juice, olive oil, and a little magnesium sulfate. So they purge the gallbladder out nicely because the oils would send the hormone, signal the hormone CCK to tell the gallbladder, flush, flush, flush. It's not the best thing, but you have to do it, and you have to do it to get it there. It's not like you're drinking a lot of that. You just take 2-3 spoons of olive oil, a quarter or half teaspoon of magnesium, the we call it the laxative, Epsom salts, the one that you could use to eat or drink. A little bit of warm water to mix with that to melt the Epsom salts, and a little bit of lemon juice. Like I squeeze a little lemon juice, a spoonful of lemon juice, you mix that together. Oh, it tastes bad, but it's effective in moving out the gallbladder, because you are conscious that you just had a night where fungus and the toxic substance from fungus, the myotoxic substance, and the LPS layers, and all these things, heavy metals, they were coming to be stored in the gallbladder, and they have to come down. So you do that in the morning, and so you bind and you flush out, you bind and you take them out, you bind and you take them out. So a milk containing fat would help, but of course you could do something as just discussed there. Right, so binding toxins reduce the toxic burden, and that is for your gallbladder. So in the morning, you are moving out things from your gallbladder going to your digestive system. I prefer to do it that way, so at least with the olive oil, I do it that way. Within an hour and a half, you would see your bowel movement take place. You have a bowel movement, it's that thing that's coming out, because you literally know the difference between a normal bowel movement and a soft bowel movement that is caused by Epsom salts. So you have what we call a flush out, right? You have what I call a flush out. So you think you are okay, and that's when you go to know and say, let me have my eggs and stick, and my stick and eggs, or your eggs and your eggs and broccoli, your eggs and cabbage mix up together in a nice kind of way, or your eggs and a piece of fish. You have that in your stomach as your meal. Fats, again, you want fats. Now, you avocado, whatever else with fats, that's what you're looking for. You're not gonna eat no nuts, right? Your butter and your eggs and stuff like that. So you still think, oh, I'm on my antifungal diet, but I flush myself out, make sure my gallbladder is flushed out. Now you had your eggs and stuff like that, so within an hour time you could start drinking, because you're saying to yourself, I know from 9, 10, 11, 12, I should be really hydrating. That's my top of the line hydration, to get things now to move through the next excrement system, which is your kidney. And that is where you need to say 9, 10, 11, 12, I'm hydrating. And it's not just drinking water. Yes, drink water, but you are mixing, like in my case, I would drink water, mix it with salt, mix it with lemon juice, hydrate, and then drink water after, also to really help and support my system. If you are using anything like a binder activity charcoal, you have to hydrate twice as much, because they do absorb a lot of liquid. Now, support your detoxification pathway, which is the liver. You support it in the evening to the night. Well, of course, the NAC, the milk thistle, the dandelion, and support in the early mornings of the day. Hydration for the kidney. Support it, and then you have other things you could use to support the kidney, which could be things like cranberry juice, parsley, corn silk, and I think dandelion is also important for this there too. Epsom salts bath is also effective to help the kidney. So the next thing is, once you throw in NAC to break the biofilm, you have to wet the fungus with the antifungal. Again, pharmaceutical or herbal grade, it doesn't matter. You wet them 30 minutes after you say you take your NAC and a digestive enzyme. 30 minutes after, you want to drink your herbal this or your herbal that on your, or your pharmaceutical, to kill fungus. Because remember, biofilm is the first thing. That's the glass. You break it. As soon as you break the glass, you want to throw in antifungals to kill fungus in the first layer. Then the next one is the same thing, and you do that over and over. Some persons, like in my case, I might have to do that for 60 days, 90 days, maybe even longer, because of the extent of how the fungus would have interwoven themselves and done the destructive damage to our system using the method of hyphal growth. That's the advanced stage growth. So we may have to do a lot more work, right? So you rotate your antifungal, and I say I have something here that says week 1 rotate schedule. The rotation schedule, pharmaceutical grade, if you could get from your, like for conazole, if you could get that from your doctor, and then next week you do herbal fungal treatment. Do not sit and say because you start feeling a little bit better you're good to go. No, friends, that is a trick from the fungus. They want you to ease up on killing them and breaking biofilm, so they make you feel okay. Hit them, and then you start seeing how they go hit you back harder, and then they would send up toxic substance to your brain to make you crave stronger, right? So you need to rotate, because fungus do have their way to try to build resistance. We talk about adopting the antifungal diet. It is key, and we would have linked some other substances that you might want to pay attention to, but at the end of the day, focus on these key 5 areas to break down fungal. Again, you need to focus on biofilm breakdown, antifungals, garlic, whatever you have, petiviral, alicella, paliaco, cinnamon, whatever you have. 2, You want to make sure you have binders, and you want to be conscientious that to move things out of the gallbladder is fats, and that's where you're thinking about a little oil, a little salt, a little in the morning. Every morning you do that. You drink a little lemon water, and you flush it yourself. To get things from the gallbladder to your duodenum, you have to put in oils or fats first thing and try to flush out yourself, because you don't want the toxic substance to be reabsorbed. So you could put a little binder, zeolite clay, activity charcoal. The harder you go, the more you might want to go with this. But remember, once you are binding bile, you are binding out a lot of things like vitamin D, vitamin A, K, and E. You're also binding some of your cholesterol. You will lose them from reabsorption because the binders might just grab onto all of that and pull them out. So you may notice that you have to also increase on the supplementation. Well, if you are not eating meat, then you have to be cautious about ADE and K, because they are the fat soluble vitamins, and the liver dumps them out in the bile also to recirculate them and reabsorb them back in a different format, because the liver sometimes does not want to hold on to these fat soluble vitamins because they are said to be not so good if they are overburdened, but the liver has found that way to recycle them there. And the cholesterol, and there's other particles that the liver sends out in bile to pull back up. So you're binding, and you have to think you're binding everything in your bile, so you'll be losing bile. But once you're eating eggs and meat in the evening, you generally would be able to make bile. Once you're eating eggs, you would get choline to thin the bile. So all these things are important to understand. Again, if you're eating eggs, you would have selenium, because selenium is something that is very important when you're doing things like NAC. Having selenium is important, but of course, if you have your eggs, you have selenium coming in once your eggs are fine. So review this protocol, please, and let me know what you think. I thank you for viewing today, and any comments would be welcome.